What are the different documentations that schools have to keep for your English language learners?
We have a lot of documentation actually that we have to do. Each student has a folder. It used to be called the LSEP. It could be called the ESOL folder or the green folder in Broward County. That folder has all the information and follows the child through their status in the ESOL program. So they would have name, parents' name, the date they initially came into program, and then there's a whole series of forms and checklists that have to be maintained. When the testing is done, we do what's called the initial language survey, which includes frequency of the language at home, where the child was born. We have some students that are coming directly into the country to us and others that were born here but maybe only had a certain language in the household. So that's the first document that goes in with their test. Then all ESOL students are entitled to accommodations, and depending on age and grade level and circumstance, there are certain ones that each student would use. So we have an accommodations checklist. So for example, a kindergartner wouldn't use a Spanish-English dictionary. They don't know how to read yet. They don't know. So that wouldn't be appropriate. But a fifth grader, especially on a standard assessment, a bilingual dictionary might really be helpful to him or to her. So each student has one of these and whatever accommodations we can afford to the child. We also send letters home to the parent. We have these in 4 languages also. And this explains to the parent what assessment was used, generally the IPT, to screen the child, what the classification is, so A1, non-English speaking, A2, limited speaking, and so forth, and what we're going to do, what kind of program the child is going to have. As I said here, we only have a mainstream program for language arts and other subject areas, but some do have self-contained classes, so that way the parent is always informed of what type of services their child can receive. And they send this back to us that if they have any questions or concerns. Now, ESOL is not an opt-out program. Parents can't, respond to us and say, I don't want my child to be an ESOL student. Okay, it's not an opt-out, but we need to inform the parents that the child is, eligible for the program. And also, especially with the older students, accommodation letters. This is a big thing with testing. Of course, that sometimes the students will stay in the classroom, sometimes they can get pulled out into small groups depending on their needs, so we need to document that too. The folder itself, we need to do documentation every year as they progress through the grades. They have a new plan, and as the ESOL contact, I have to review their status, how they're progressing. They also have spring assessments called SELA, and we have to keep the results of those in the folders and document the dates they were given and what levels they are. And each year the child is reviewed. For the first 2 years, pretty much it's just my own personal review of how they're doing, connect with the teacher. After that, we have certain assessments or reevaluation that we have to do with the children. So all of that is in here in the folder. And anytime we meet as a committee to discuss an English language learners process, we have to invite parents, and that has to be documented also and kept in the folder. So you see, we're killing a lot of trees here. Okay, and of course, if the child is exiting, we have to notify the parents of that too, that they're exiting the program, and what are the criteria that we base that on. So pretty much their whole career in school is documented on this folder all in one place. They are going to be, we're going to have an online system coming up sometime this year that's supposed to help with this documentation, because what often happens is a child will go from one school to another and this might get lost. So, trying to get that information from different systems that we have now is not always easy. And if we had an online database with all our ESOL students, that would facilitate it. So that's supposedly coming up this year. So that's a lot of documentation.